Hi, I'm Maggie. Nice to meet you. Before I tell you my story, kindly hit subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I like to know where you're from. Now let's dive in. I always thought if my marriage ended, I'd see it coming. There would be shouting matches, slammed doors, maybe even the Cold War of silence stretched over months. But not this. Not a thick manila envelope sitting on my porch when I got home from work. My name typed in blocky letters, the kind you see on bills or jury summons. I almost didn't open it right away. Kevin was inside, sprawled on the living room floor with his Legos, and I wanted to keep that warm, ordinary scene intact for just a little longer. But something about the weight of the envelope made my hands sweat. Inside were divorce papers. Real ones. Ben's name at the top, mine underneath. No warning. No conversation. Just this. And right there in cold legal language. Petitioner alleges respondent engaged in marital misconduct, including infidelity, and questions paternity of the minor child, Kevin Rhodes. I read it twice before the words started to blur. Infidelity? Paternity? My throat went dry. When Ben walked in an hour later, he didn't look like my husband. Same broad shoulders, same neatly trimmed beard, but his eyes, they were flat, almost businesslike. You could have talked to me, I said. My voice came out hoarse. I've talked enough, Maggie. He set his keys down, careful, deliberate. I'm not doing this anymore. I deserve the truth, and I'll get it one way or another. The truth about what? My voice cracked. Kevin looked up from the floor, sensing the tension. Ben's gaze flicked toward our son, then back to me. Don't make me say it in front of him. I could feel my heartbeat in my ears. I have never cheated on you. Then you won't mind proving it, he said. DNA tests for both of you. If I'm wrong, I'll apologize. But if I'm right, he didn't finish. And just like that, he walked past me into the kitchen, like we hadn't just stepped into some nightmare version of our life. That night, after Kevin was in bed, I sat at the kitchen table staring at those papers. We'd been married 9 years. Kevin was 7. We'd survived job losses, my mom's cancer, his dad's funeral. None of it had prepared me for this. I thought about every moment in the past month. Had I said something? Done something? Was there someone feeding him lies? The next morning it got worse. My father David called. Maggie, is it true? His voice was sharp, almost shaking. Is what true? That Ben's questioning if Kevin is his. That there's talk of you, stepping out. I pressed my fingers to my temple. Dad, no. It's ridiculous. He didn't sound convinced. Your mother and I are coming over. Half an hour later, David and Amelia walked in like they were storming a crime scene. My father's face was red, jaw clenched. He didn't even sit down. Where's your phone? He demanded. What? Your phone, Maggie. And Amelia, yours too. He turned to my mother, his voice sharp. David, stop, my mom said, but he was already moving toward my bag. You think you're the only one who can ask questions? His eyes darted between us. If there's something going on, I'll find it. It hit me then, this wasn't just about Ben anymore. My father thought my mother might be hiding something too. By the time they left, I was shaking. The divorce papers were still on the table, a silent reminder that my life had just split clean down the middle. And somewhere in the pit of my stomach, a cold dread settled. Because for the first time, I wasn't entirely sure the truth was going to save me. By the time I went to bed that night, I'd stopped feeling like a wife or even a daughter. I felt like a suspect. Every glance from Ben, every question from my father, was a silent accusation I couldn't shake off. The next morning, I woke up to my phone buzzing nonstop. Missed calls, texts, mostly from my dad. David, we need to talk today. Don't avoid me. David, answer your phone. It was barely 8 a.m. when I heard the pounding on my front door. Kevin was still in his pajamas, brushing his teeth. When I opened the door, my parents stood there like they'd driven straight through the night on a mission. David didn't waste time. Maggie, we're not playing games. Where's your phone? I stepped aside to let them in. Dad, I told you last night. I don't care what you told me. His voice was low but charged, like a storm about to break. If Ben's saying this, he didn't pull it out of thin air. Who's putting these ideas in his head? Or is he right? My mom, Amelia, was wringing her hands like she'd already been through this conversation with him a dozen times. David, stop. You're making it worse. Worse. He spun toward her, eyes narrowed. You think this is bad now? Wait until it blows up in court. We need to know everything before it gets there. I crossed my arms, trying to steady my voice. You want to read my texts? Go ahead. You'll find grocery lists, work emails, and PDA reminders. But he didn't move toward me. Instead, he turned to my mother. Yours too. She blinked. Mine. You've been acting strange for weeks, he said, his voice shaking now. Quiet. Distant. What are you hiding from me, Amelia? It was like a bomb went off. Dad, that's enough, I snapped. You're tearing into both of us for something that isn't even true. But he wasn't listening. He stepped closer to my mom. Phone. Now. Her jaw tightened, and she slowly took it out of her purse. I'd never seen my mother look at him that way. Not afraid, but almost resigned. Like she knew this was a battle she wouldn't win. He scrolled fast, his eyes darting back and forth. Then he stopped. His thumb froze on the screen. What's this? His voice was a whisper, but it carried through the room. My mother's lips pressed into a thin line. That's work. This doesn't look like work. He turned the phone toward me. I caught just enough to see a string of late-night messages from a name I didn't recognize. Short, cryptic replies. Too familiar. I felt my stomach twist. My dad shoved the phone back into her hand. We'll talk later. Then he grabbed his coat from the chair. Maggie, get ready for what's coming. This family is about to go through hell. The door slammed behind him, and for a moment the only sound in the house was Kevin's voice from the hallway. Mom? Is Grandpa mad at you? I forced a smile I didn't feel. No, honey. Grown-ups are just figuring things out. But as I stood there, the truth settled over me like a heavy blanket. Whatever was going on between Ben and me wasn't the only secret in this family. And my father wasn't going to stop until he dug them all up. I didn't sleep the night after my dad stormed out. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face, red with anger, locked in that mix of betrayal and determination. But by the next morning, I realized there was no escaping it. Ben wasn't bluffing. A DNA test was coming whether I agreed or not. He made it official over coffee. I booked the appointment, he said without looking at me, scrolling on his phone. Tomorrow. You and Kevin. Results in a week. I set my mug down harder than I meant to. And when they prove you wrong, then we'll both have answers, he said, his tone unreadable. And if they prove me right, his voice trailed off like he'd already finished that sentence in his head. The next day, I sat in a sterile clinic room while a nurse swabbed Kevin's cheek. He was confused but curious, swinging his legs from the exam chair. Is this for school? He asked. No, baby, I said softly. Just something Dad wanted to check. When it was my turn, I kept my eyes fixed on the wall, willing myself not to cry. Ben was in the corner, arms crossed, watching every move. The week that followed felt like a slow-motion freefall. My father barely spoke to me. My mother texted once, "Hang in there, Maggie," but avoided my calls. It was like the whole family was holding its breath. When the results came in, Ben didn't wait to open them in private. He came straight into the kitchen, envelope in hand, Kevin outside playing basketball with the neighbor. He tore the seal and read silently. His jaw flexed. Well, he said finally, looks like I was half right. The words made my stomach turn. What does that mean? He slid the paper across the counter. I scanned the bold print. Maggie Rhodes, biological mother, confirmed. Kevin Rhodes, biological child of Ben Rhodes, excluded. It felt like the ground shifted under me. You think this proves I cheated? My voice shook. It proves Kevin isn't mine, he said flatly. And I'm not raising another man's kid. Before I could speak, my father walked in. He must have seen the paper in my hand, because he didn't ask. Instead, he reached into his jacket and pulled out another envelope. I had my own test done. I blinked. What? He opened it and read, Maggie Rhodes, biological daughter of David Rhodes, confirmed. Why would you? I started, but he cut me off. Because when a man starts doubting bloodlines, he needs to know where the truth ends. The room felt too small for all of us. Ben was staring at me like I was a stranger. My dad's eyes were locked on mine, searching for something I couldn't give him. So, Ben said, pushing his chair back, "You can fight for custody if you want. But I'm not staying in this marriage. Not another day." And just like that, he walked out. No yelling, no slamming doors. Just a quiet exit that felt worse than any fight. My father stayed, but his presence wasn't comforting. "You'd better start talking, Maggie. Because if you don't tell me who Kevin's father is, I'll find out myself." I didn't answer. Because the truth was, I wasn't sure I wanted to know. The truth was out, but it didn't close the wound. It just cut deeper. 2 days after Ben walked out with the DNA results in hand, I got a call from a woman named Linda Carson. Her voice was calm, professional, cold. "I'm calling on behalf of Mr. Rhodes," she said. "We'll be filing a petition to disestablish paternity. That will terminate all legal rights and obligations to the minor child, Kevin Rhodes." Terminate. Legal rights. Obligations. She was talking about my son like he was an unwanted contract Ben was trying to void. "Just so we're clear," I said slowly, "you're telling me my husband wants nothing to do with the boy he's raised for 7 years? "That's correct," she said without even a pause. When I hung up, my hands were shaking so hard I nearly dropped the phone. I stared out the window where Kevin was kicking a soccer ball against the fence, his hair flopping into his eyes. He didn't know yet. I didn't know how to tell him. That night, Ben came by to get some of his things. I met him at the door. "You really think you can just erase him?" I asked. He kept his eyes on the hallway behind me. "He's not my son, Maggie. This is what's best. For everyone." "For everyone? Or just for you?" He didn't answer. He didn't even look at me. He just walked past, grabbed his duffel bag, and left without a single glance toward Kevin's room. And then there was my father. If Ben was pulling away, David was pulling me into a whole different kind of nightmare. He called constantly, pressing the same question over and over: "Who's Kevin's real father?" When I told him again that I didn't know, his tone hardened. "Then I'll find out." A few nights later, he showed up unannounced. No knock, no hello. He slapped a manila folder onto my kitchen table. Inside were photos, printouts, and names I recognized. Old coworkers, neighbors, even a college friend I hadn't spoken to in years. "Dad, this is insane," I said, pushing the folder back toward him. "No," he said, leaning forward, "this is protecting our family from more humiliation. If I have to test every man you've spoken to in the last decade, I will." "Kevin isn't some scandal to cover up," I snapped. "He's a little boy." "He's a question mark," my father shot back. "And I don't live with question marks." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. This wasn't about Ben anymore. This was about control. My father's need to write a story where nothing was out of place, no matter the cost. The first court date came fast. Ben's lawyer presented the DNA results like a silver bullet, arguing for the termination of all legal ties. My lawyer fought back, pointing out that Ben had acted as a father for years, but it was like shouting into the wind. Ben sat there, expressionless, never once looking my way. The judge didn't decide that day, but I could feel which way the tide was turning. That night, after Kevin went to bed, I sat in the dark at the kitchen table, staring at the manila folder my father had left behind. Because here was the worst part. Buried under my anger, under the humiliation, was a gnawing fear that maybe David was right. Maybe finding out the truth, even if it destroyed everything, was the only way forward. The ruling came on a rainy Tuesday morning. I sat at the respondent's table, my lawyer to my right, a pitcher of water and a stack of papers between us. Across the aisle, Ben sat at the petitioner's table, his attorney leaning in close to whisper something. He didn't look at me. Not once. The judge adjusted her glasses and began reading the decision in a steady, practiced tone. "The petitioner's motion to disestablish paternity is hereby granted. The petitioner, Benjamin Rhodes, is no longer the legal father of the minor child, Kevin Rhodes. All parental rights and obligations are terminated effective immediately." It was over in less than 2 minutes. 7 years of family gone, legally erased, in the time it takes to read a paragraph. Ben signed one final document, slid it toward his attorney, and stood. He didn't look at me, didn't look at Kevin, didn't even glance at the judge as he walked out of the courtroom. That was the last time I saw him. David, on the other hand, wasn't going anywhere. If anything, my father's obsession with finding Kevin's biological father only intensified. 2 weeks later, he called me over to his house. When I walked into his study, a thick envelope sat on the desk between us. "I have the answer," he said, his voice sharp with triumph. I didn't move. "I told you before, I don't want to know." "You need to know," he insisted. "No," I said, shaking my head. "You need to control everything. You need every answer, every piece in place. But Kevin is not some unfinished puzzle for you to solve. He's my son." His jaw tightened. "One day he'll ask. When that day comes, you'd better be ready to tell him." That night, I tucked Kevin into bed and sat on the edge of the mattress long after he'd fallen asleep. The soft rhythm of his breathing was the only thing that kept me from breaking down completely. Whoever had given him half his DNA didn't change the fact that I'd been there for every moment of his life, and I wasn't going anywhere. The weeks after the hearing were quieter, but the quiet had a weight to it. Neighbors whispered. Friends kept conversations short. Even my mother kept her distance, as though siding with me would pull her into David's line of fire. I found us a smaller place, just 2 bedrooms and a little yard where Kevin could kick his soccer ball. I learned how to fix a leaky faucet and patch drywall. I picked up extra shifts. Survival became a kind of rhythm. One night, while I was folding laundry, Kevin asked, "Why doesn't Daddy live with us anymore?" I swallowed hard. "Sometimes grown-ups make choices that don't make sense to kids," I said gently. "But you are loved. Always. That will never change." He nodded, then asked if I could read him his favorite bedtime story. I did, even though my throat ached the whole time. A month after the ruling, a plain envelope arrived in the mail. No return address, but I recognized my father's handwriting immediately. I didn't open it. I shoved it into the back of my closet under a stack of winter coats. Maybe he was right. Maybe one day Kevin would want to know. But today wasn't that day. And until it was, the only truth that mattered was this. We had survived. And for now, survival was enough. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time, bye.